Okay, good morning and welcome once again to the Public Works Contracting Series #1. This one is on contractors insurance programs. My name is James Forrest. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal PTAC. And then we have Ed Duarte, the construction public works specialist, also with Norcal PTAC. He's going to be putting on a great presentation this morning. And there will be two more of these as well coming up this week and next week. So we hope you join us for those as well. Before we get started, I am going to talk a little bit about PTAC, Norcal PTAC specifically. We are a government-funded program, not a government agency, but we are funded by the Defense Logistics Agency, as well as other state and local grants. And we're a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We're part of a network of centers across the country, all independently run. And what we do is we help our clients, who are mostly small businesses, we help them win government contracts. That's all we do, and we love doing it. Last year in 2020, which was a difficult year for many, as we know, economically speaking and otherwise, we actually helped our clients win more than $314 million in government contracts. It's a pretty big difference in a lot of people's lives, and we actually doubled that number from 2019, so we're on the right track. We are hosted by the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation. That is located up where that red star is on the map there in green. And this, by the way, this map is our service area. You see there's 15 counties, including the 9 counties that touch San Francisco and San Pablo Bays. That is our service area along the coast as well, up going into the rural counties of Siskiyou, Trinity, and Shasta. If you are in this service area, you are welcome to apply for our services. If you are out of this service area, you can join all of our resources and trainings, but you won't be eligible for our services, but there will be other PTACs across the country. So there's a link there that shows how you can look up your local PTAC at aptac-us.org/find-a-PTAC. All PTACs have similar services that we offer. So for us, we have one-on-one counseling. This is the bread and butter of what we do. We've got a pretty small tag team of highly skilled experts in the field, procurement specialists who can meet with you and go over just about any topic of government contracting you could think of. So if you need help getting certifications, doing marketplace research, working on your feasibility statement, how to prepare a bid, how to deal with compliance, issues with insurance programs, you can work with Ed if you request him. So we do all of those things. We don't assist with grants. We don't assist with financing. We don't assist with startup assistance. So once your business is up and running, you can work with us with any of these topics. We also can help with custom bid matching, which is basically a service that we pay for and offer to you for free. Sign up with certain criteria, then you get bid notifications sent right to your inbox every morning. We'll have a list of bids that match criteria that you work out with your specialist, and you can bid on them pretty much right away. So this helps you stay on top of all the opportunities that are made available to you. Then, of course, as you can tell today, we have resources and trainings. And so these are free and these are available to join for anyone, anywhere, regardless of location, company status, etc. So we want to be as welcoming as possible. So thanks for joining us today. Like I said, there's other PTACs, so go look up your PTAC if you're not in our service area, but you are in the United States. And we are partnering with the SBDC today. That is the Small Business Development Center. The Norcal SBDC is one of the largest networks. It's a nonprofit network made up of 18 centers, and they're dedicated to helping small businesses with every aspect of business creation, growth, management, and operation. So unlike us, who focus specifically on procurement, the SBDC focuses on all aspects. You can find your local SBDC. There'll be a link on these slides when you get it later today, and you can start receiving one-on-one advising low-cost training. You can also just Google your county name and SBDC, and that will come up with the correct resource as well. I want to point out a couple of COVID-19 resources. Both the SBDC and the PTAC in the NorCal region have COVID-19 pages where we've put together a bunch of resources that we think are going to be helpful for you. So go ahead and take a look at these websites, chocked full of good resources, both websites really. So if you're interested in procurement, especially the PTAC website is really awesome. All right, before I hand things over to Ed, which is what you're all waiting for, I do want to give a little bit of housekeeping here. So in this version of Zoom webinar, there's a chat and there's a Q&A. If you have a question about a technical issue, you can't see, you can't hear, you want to say hello to other participants, you have to leave early or something like that, you can put that in the chat feature if you want. So the chat is for that sort of thing. If you have a question that you want Ed to read aloud and to answer during the Q&A, that will go in the Q&A feature. That way we can all track it. It shows when you've answered questions, shows which questions are open. So please do put your questions in the Q&A. I can't repost them in the Q&A if you put them in the chat. So that would be really great. And I want to remind everyone, because we do always get questions about this, that we are recording right now, and the slides as well as the video recording are going to be sent to everyone, posted to our website, and made available later today. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. Info at norcalptac.org is the address where that notice will come from. You can also check out our website, norcalptac.org/webinars. That's where they're going. It's going to join our past archive of webinars. We've got dozens and dozens of our webinars, including previous presentations by Ed here. So do check it out. All right, with no further ado, I will hand things over to Ed Duarte, who's going to talk a little bit about his experience, and then take you through this topic of insurance programs for contractors. So Ed, thank you so much, and take it away.
Very much, James. Good morning, everybody.
You could start your video, Ed.
I'm sorry?
If you could start your video, you're invisible still.
Okay. All right. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to this workshop.
Still can't see you, unfortunately.
You can't see me?
Nope.
The tab says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Well, that's on me. All right, I've asked you to. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay. All right. For the third time, good morning, everybody. I'm bringing this workshop today. I thought it's kind of an experiment, so I hope that you all can help evaluate the value, the content of what we're providing today. My background, I'm a retired civil engineer and general engineering contractor. Our family business is now into its third generation, and we've been in business since 1950. And I took over the company in the 70s, and my son took over the company about 8 years ago. All we have ever done is public works, and always as a prime, always as a general contractor, building fire stations, police stations, wastewater treatment plants, etc. So when I retired, I thought, seeing over the years how the outreach to DBE firms has had it, the firms themselves have had trouble with all of the issues involved in public works construction. I started doing these classes and workshops and seminars to try to give you a sense of how the industry works in the public sector. So today I'm going to talk about construction insurance that the contractors are required to provide, but we're not going to talk about it. I'm not trying to sell any insurance. I'm not an attorney. I'm going to tell you about the insurance process from a contractor's perspective, and perhaps clear up some of the misconceptions that are out there regarding this requirement. So next slide, James. And we'll go past the disclosure. Public works construction contracts in California. The California Public Contract Code has requirements that apply to all California public works construction contracts regarding insurance. And sometimes those requirements, they look a little complex or confusing. So as I said, I'm going to look at each type of policy in contractors' terms and maybe help you understand what they cover and what you need to do to comply, how to obtain that insurance, and give you a rough idea of what it's going to cost. So it's an overview, and we'll get started. So I'm also going to talk about the relationship of the insurance process between a prime and a sub and an owner. Next slide, please. So the typical list of policies are PLPD, public liability, property damage, workers' comp, automobile insurance, pollution coverage, builder's risk, also known as course of construction. And for you construction managers and architects and engineers, you're going to have to come up with professional liability, also called errors and omissions insurance. We're going to look at each one and talk a little bit about what it is they actually do, and also how a typical broker determines the cost they're going to charge you, and what kind of lawsuits they're going to cover. The sad part about being a business owner in California is that, I don't know, maybe we might be second or third to Illinois and New York, but California, we're famous for being a litigious state. Everybody here has an attorney. Everybody wants to sue everybody over anything. And public works construction contractors, we are prime targets. So it's important that you know how this coverage is, why it's required, and what it does. So next one, James. The first one was public liability and property damage. That type of policy, it covers the damages for personal and material damages due to accidents, explosions, structure collapse, equipment collisions, public property damage, etc. Some of the examples of that would be your backhoe is out there digging within the fenced enclosure. You're on the project site, but you hit a gas line. This is where the PLPD would come in. You're pouring concrete on a second story with a concrete pump, and the pump, as it swings over the edge of the property, splatters of concrete, of grout, land on some cars that are parked out in the street. That would be covered under the PLPD policy. Explosions, of course. Those are the types of damages that are going to occur, and this is the type of policy that protects you on that. And before I forget, I'm going to mention that there is a really crucial relationship between the subcontractor, the prime contractor, and the owner and the designer. And I think you're going to find it kind of interesting, because I certainly know I did when I started in the business. How do they charge for this? Well, it's usually based on a fixed rate of X dollars, say $8, $9 per $1,000 of your sales volume. So if you have a rate of $10 per thousand and you're doing $100,000 worth of volume in a given year, you're going to pay 10 times that. You're going to pay that rate times each thousand. So that would be 100 times 10. It could be a $10,000 value or a $100,000 premium. You could do the math. I'm not going to do it now, but it's based on a rate, and that rate will be determined by your volume, by your experience, and by the type of work that you're going to be doing in that particular project. The workers' comp, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on that, because I think all of you who own companies, you've already come across that requirement. If you have an employee, you need workers' comp in California, period. There is no variation, no exemption on that. The only way that you can have people on the job site that are quote unquote independent contractors is really they have to be a subcontractor. They literally have to be an established business entity. In California, the legislature and the state labor board, they're obsessed with making sure that we don't hire anybody or allow anybody to work on our projects using what we all know called piecework. In other words, The framers get paid by dollars per square foot. How many units they frame up in a day? How many yards of concrete you pour out? How many pounds of steel you do? And you've been paying them on a percentage or a unit price basis. That isn't going to happen, folks, if they are individual workers. If it's a subcontractor, fine. But you as a prime cannot have people working on the site being paid piecework. They have to be paid by the hour. The same thing goes for the subcontractors. And that rate is determined by the classification of the type of work they do. So as you would expect, roofers and iron workers have higher rates. And that rate is fixed by the state. And let's just pick an example. So they say that the rate for roofers is going to be $17 per $100 of payroll. Again, another unit determination. That your first year in business, you get the benefit of the doubt, and you get the one. It's that set. You pay the $17. If you have an accident in that first year, then your EMR, your employee modification ratio, is modified by the state and by the carrier, and your rate will go from a 1 to a 1.1 or a 1.2 or a 1.3. So the old adage that says safety pays, it absolutely pays for the construction industry. Unfortunately, as you all know, you watch TV and see the news that there's an accident on the job site, and the immediate assumption is you have a shoddy safety program with that contractor, and they're not protecting their employees and letting them work safely. Sure, that happens. Absolutely. We've got bad contractors in our industry. Every industry has bad players. But in California, the overwhelming majority of the general and subcontractors that do these public works, we try very hard to maintain a good safety record because, quite frankly, it saves us a ton of money. And I mean a lot. If you have a real good 2 or 3 year cycle, bonuses come back in the way of discounts. And 1 year with our company, we got about a $30,000 refund from our carrier because we had 3 years with no accidents. And we took that $28,000 and gave it in form of bonuses and a company picnic, etc. So it pays to work safely. But the really important thing that I want to cover on workers' comp is that it is required, and you're not going to get on a job site if you don't show proof of insurance that you have workers' compensation. You're not going to get on the job site unless you show proof of all of these, but we'll get to that in a moment. The automobile insurance. I just talked to our broker the other day, and she tells me that automobile insurance rates are going up. Later in the workshop, I'm going to show you a typical insurance certificate that shows the coverage, but all of these coverages are going to be defined specifically in the specifications. Pollution coverage, that covers damages due to toxic and hazardous materials encountered on the job site. Cost, again, is usually determined by sales volume of the contractor and the amount of coverage. If you're like us, we do wastewater treatment plant work. If there's a sewage spillage out on the street, the damages are usually in the tens of thousands. If we're working around a chemical refinery and poisonous chemicals get released into the air or on the ground, that the damages are obviously, they they go right to the millions. So it's a pollution coverage is a requirement that is becoming more and more common. It used to be, even as recent as 10 or 12 years ago, that pollution coverage was only required on certain types of projects, water and wastewater, refinery work. We're seeing pollution coverage in the specifications for more and more typical, quote unquote, standard type construction projects. So again, whatever is required will be defined specifically in the specifications. Next one. Next. Builder's risk. And sometimes we call it course of construction. Okay, that's the one that covers the cost of replacing materials at the job site that were damaged or stolen due to or destroyed by fire. So the typical three is fire, theft, and vandalism. Again, the cost is usually based on the size of the contract and the type of work involved. So I say concrete work is much cheaper than wood frame. If you're a framing contractor or a general contractor who does your own framing, your course of construction is going to be very expensive because you're dealing in wood. And even more so recently, because if you are, those of you who are current on material prices, you should be aware that the cost of construction lumber has doubled in the last 40 days. So it's builder's risk is a big deal. I might mention that some owners choose to buy a builder's risk policy paid for by the owner so that they know that any kind of theft and vandalism that does occur is covered, the materials are covered. That I won't put a percentage to the number of owners that do that. It is done. We see it more often that they make the contractor pay for it. So it's like a safety net for you. And just about every contractor that experienced contractor in public works, they make sure that they've got a builder's risk policy. Now, for you A&E firms and your construction management firms, the big one for you, you have all the others. You probably won't need to buy pollution, and you won't need to buy builder's risk because you are strictly managing the project. But you will have to have E&O insurance, errors and omission, which is simply for UCM firms and A&Es out there. You know that it's coverage that it will cover the errors of professional judgment in design, contract administration, or any other management decisions involved in project management. And the cost is usually based on the amount of coverage. And it's not cheap. E&O can run for as low as, for a small firm doing a small portion of the job, maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. I found my experience when I was still working was $7,500 to $12,000. As soon as your firm gets involved in design build contracts, it goes up. We do a lot of design build, and our E&O can run as much as $15,000 to $20,000 a year for that one type of policy. It's not, again, showing my age, but going back 10, 15 years before design build became so popular, pardon me, yeah, you would never, hang on just a second. You wouldn't find very many contractors who carried professional liability. It's become more and more typical for more and more general contractors. The bigger the firm and the more complex work they do, we carry it routinely now. We carry it all the time. So it's something that is, both members of the team will have to do certainly for the CM or the A&E. Next slide. Well, there's some other documents and terms and variations that you need to be familiar with. For those of you that are DBEs, you may have been told, look for the projects that have OCIPs, owner-controlled insurance programs. What that simply is that the agency, the owner, will buy a master policy that covers all the contractors and their employees who are working on the project. The cost is covered by the owner, but they may ask for a credit in the bid price. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, let's just say it was BART. If they buy if they put in place an owner-controlled insurance program, they'll buy that policy, and they're going to expect that their contractors, when they price the job, that they do not include the cost of insurance, because they're saying, well, you won't need workers' comp, builder's risk, PLPD, automobile. We've got it all. We've got an owner insurance program, and that's fine. My question always was, whenever we ran across this type of job, was how am I going to determine that amount? Well, yeah, I know what my insurance costs are for the whole year for all my projects, but I know I'm going to have to pay for my other project that does not have an OCIP in place. The reality is that a lot of the contractors say they are not including the cost of insurance, but it simply winds up being too much trouble for them not to. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm just telling you that be aware that if you are going to work on a project and you are awarded a contract that has an OCIP, you could be required by the owner to justify your pricing to show that you have not included the cost of insurance. Okay? You'll hear the term additional insured. Really a big deal. Because this goes to the heart of how the insurance industry works in public works construction projects. Additional insurance is the addition of another entity that your policy must cover. And in a way, I've stated that incorrect, that your policy is not going to cover it. What it means is that I am holding harmless the owner, the architect, the engineer, and the construction manager as the prime contractor. I am defending them against any lawsuits that occur as a result of our operations. They don't have to tender a defense. And that's the difference. So the key to this is that the insurance company, my insurance company, is going to say to me, well, yeah, I'll do that. I'll defend the county, the owner. I'll defend the design firm, and I'll defend the CM. But you, Ed, your company as the prime, you have to put some safeguards in place. And since I'm a general contractor and there's a ton of subcontracts out there with all doing their specialty work, each one of them has to have the same list of policies, and they all have to have the county, the CM, the designer, and me as an additional insured, which simply means they're going to defend us if they are the cause of the accident or the damages or the event. So everybody insures their own operation, and the way it's structured and put into place is the additional insured feature. I hope that's clear. If not, when we get to the Q&A, we can go over it again. But again, additional insured is that other parties will have to be added to your policy, which is simply saying that you will cover their defense. See, when Caltrans or the county or the water district or the school district, when they award a contract to a prime contractor, remember, these contracts are written to be as bulletproof as possible in favor of the owner. So there's no way that we're going to get away with not defending them. We won't even get the award if we don't show the proof of insurance. That is absolutely a non-negotiable issue. So all those policies that I listed on the first slide, they're typically required. It isn't a maybe or kind of or we want you. You will provide those policies. A rider for extra coverage is called an umbrella, and it's a policy addendum, and that will increase the amount of coverage just for the duration of the project. So if you have a PLPD limits of 5 million and you're working on a Caltrain project for Caltrain, well, anytime you're around the railroads, they want $10 million worth of coverage. Well, how many jobs are we all going to do for Caltrain? One in a year, or two a year? I mean, if that. Most of us, we come across that type of increased coverage requirement once in a blue moon. So you simply buy a rider, and it's an addendum. And when that is called for in the specifications, all you do is copy that page, send it to your broker, and they will give you a quote just to cover that cost of that rider alone. And that needs to be added into your bid along with your regular overhead, which covers your regular insurance. I think that should make sense to everybody. Okay, next slide. Common practices, the proof of insurance is provided in the form of a certificate. Again, I may be preaching to the choir. I'm sure some of you, or maybe many of you, are as contractors and architects and engineers, you're already have an insurance program in place. As I said, this was meant to be an overview. I'm going to have James bring up this certificate in a minute. We'll come back to it and examine it in detail. But what it's going to show, it lists the type of policies being provided, the policy numbers, the limits of coverage, the expiration date of the policy, and it shows who is additionally insured. So in order to activate any program, we place a deposit with a broker, and a binder is issued to guarantee coverage, and we're off and running. And hopefully you have enough money in your bank to, during the course of construction, that as you get your progress payments, you're able to make your payments to the insurance company, because as soon as you miss a payment, the policy is null and void, and they'll be held to pay on that. So James, let's take a look at that example. Okay, this is a real certificate. This is for our firm, and as the insured, there we are as the consultants. And on the different policies over on the right, there's the carriers that my broker shops our policies and gets us the best price. So we have Landmark California, RSUI Indemnity, the State Compensation Fund for Workers' Comp, and Lloyd's of London is for our errors and omission. So scrolling on down, the general liability, there's the policy effective dates, and there's the coverages, the types of coverage that are provided. There's the automobile policy, $1 million. There's our umbrella. We carry a $4 million umbrella. There's our workers' comp. Scroll down a little more. And there is our professional liability. And we have a limit of $1 million per claim with an aggregate coverage of $2 million. The next box is the description of the project. And down at the bottom is the certificate holder. And in that box above, it says Contra Costa County and its officers and employees as additional insured as respects to general liability per attached CG 20. And that's the name of this particular certificate. And additional insured in respects to auto liability, et cetera. So there is the definition of that we're indemnifying, doing coverage for the county and all of their agents, meaning their inspectors, their REs, their project managers, their designer, because the county does their own design work on this particular project. And then this certificate holder, this is what we issue, our agent issues to us, and we send this, an original, to the owner along with the signed contract and our performance and payment bonds. And when they get these three and they vet our policy and vet our bonding company, then they are comfortable enough. They will issue a notice to proceed, a notice of award, excuse me. They'll issue the notice of award to the governing body, the county supervisors or the city council or the school board, whoever's going to award the contract. The staff makes sure that those three items are in place, and then the process moves forward. And then the more sophisticated agencies, the bigger ones, they will enter into their software all those expiration dates. And then you will get a notification from the county or from BART or from Caltrans and says, we see that your workers' comp is about to expire. Please make sure that you have your renewal in place ASAP. So the whole process is governed completely. And without these coverages, for each and every contractor, licensed contractor, awarded a contract on the site, and the additional insureds, then that's how the process gets covered. Otherwise, one insurance, the prime contractors group of insurers, they're going to have to take care of everything. My concrete guy, his pump breaks down and falls out into the street and crushes a car and injures a pedestrian and damages 3 cars with covering with concrete. My guys, first of all, the county's going to say, well, Ed, you've got a problem. So let's get that taken care of. And my insurance agency will immediately, as soon as we file the accident report, they will say, you do have an insurance certificate from that concrete sub, right? And I said, yes, sir, we do. Well, then that means the concrete sub's insurance steps up to the plate and is the first and foremost defender of all the additional insureds. So on my subcontractors, they will, in that box, they will be listing Aztec as additional insured along with the owner and its agents. So I think that kind of covers it on the insurance certificate. We'll go back to the slides, James. So as I said, that is how we provide certificates of insurance. In very rare cases, we have heard via an industry newsletter that somebody turned in a forged insurance certificate and changed the dates to show that coverage was in place when in fact no premiums had been paid. And you know what, if there's no insurance, and my staff don't see that the subcontractor's policy is still in effect, my insurance company has the right to say, Ed, you're going to have to defend this one yourself. You did not do your due diligence and make sure that your subcontractors have in force current policies. It can get very, very sticky very quickly. So I wanted to talk about these issues strictly from the contractor's perspective, not from an insurance agent's perspective. I wanted to explain how this affects you and what it can destroy you on one project if you don't have the proper insurance. Let's go to the next slide, please. So to wrap things up, all California public contracts, they require insurance, period. There are no exemptions. Insurance coverage is available to any contractor who can pay for it. I've been doing these workshops for over 25 years, and because I've worked with dozens and dozens of DBEs who are just getting into the business. And one of the things I hear, which I feel very badly about, is their system is rigged against me because we can't afford that insurance. We can't get insurance. We can't get insurance. Well, that's true and not true. The system is rigged, but it's rigged by the owners against the contractors. And since, you know, like they say, if you got all the money and you and their justification is it's in the public's welfare, then they have the right to impose those requirements. So there's the first barrier. That insurance coverage is absolutely required. The second coverage, well, it costs money. Well, of course it costs money. Nothing is free, especially in California. So don't tell me you can't get it, because you can. Can you afford it? That's a different issue. That's a different issue. That has to do with financial ability, net worth. Did you save money and get a nest egg going before you open the doors on your shop? You can't come into the public works arena fresh with a brand new license and a brand new firm, never having done a job, never having bought insurance, and expect to participate if you don't have money to operate. Because unlike the private sector, we don't get any money up front. There are no deposits. Everything is paid in an arrears basis. I talk about this a lot in my estimating workshops, and then I do another workshop that talks about what you're going to encounter when you take on public works. But that's another story for another time. A prime can simply, we will not allow any sub on the job site who does not provide certifiable proof of insurance in the proper format. You're not gonna work. You won't get your contract if you can't provide the insurance. You're gonna get substituted out. Even if I listed you on bid day, in accordance with the public contract code on subcontractor listing, you told me that you were ready to go to work, and that I can only make the assumption that you have the ability to get insurance. All of those insurances. If you don't, I don't have to award you the contract. Both subs and primes must identify the owners and architects, the engineers and CMs by showing them as additionally insured. So for you CMs, it's a good deal because you have the less risk of everybody. You don't have design risk and you don't have construction risk. But you do have management decisions that you're going to be held accountable. So having yourself indemnified by the subcontractor and the prime contractor for those other issues is a benefit. It's a perk that you get when you're a CM. And my last piece of advice is simply make sure you deal with an experienced insurance broker who deals in this type of market. Your typical residential insurance broker, that if that's all they do, they're not going to know how to provide this type of market, and they don't have the horsepower to shop the marketplace for the best rates for you. And the thing that we always did was, and we've been with our same agent now, probably going on 15 years. We simply said, what other contractors do you insure? And when I saw their list of heavy duty players, I said, well, if it's good enough for those big guys, it's good enough for us. So we went with that particular firm, and they've done us well over the last 15 or 20 years. I can't remember when we signed on with them. That's the workshop in quote unquote contractor's perspective, contractor's language. I hope it made sense, and I'm certainly open to any and all questions right now.
All right, had some trouble getting myself unmuted. So, like I said, let's see, we're gonna echo here. Like I said, we do have a Q&A time now, so I want to talk about that. But first, let me go ahead and just go over a couple of our upcoming events. And of course, the first thing to start off with is just that we have 2 more in this series. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, or you are interested in these other topics as well, or perhaps more, do check out the other 2 events in this series. We've got tips on risk mitigation, and that is on Thursday, day after tomorrow, 10 a.m. And then we've got managing your first project. That is on next Tuesday, so a week from today, at the exact same time. So we hope you join us for those. And then, of course, we're always doing webinars on lots of different topics, introductory, more advanced ones. So we've got a webinar on SAM, System for Award Management. That's on May 6th. Then we've got one on the Woman-Owned Small Business Certification, which is undergoing lots of changes these days, and that's a hot topic. You can check that out on May 11th. And our calendar is chock full of upcoming events, ones that we host, also ones that we partner with, and ones that we recommend from our partners. So hope you get something out of all of those, and we see you again. But we do have time for a Q&A now. I just want to know if you are going to leave early, we have a survey that we'd like for you to fill out. I'll paste it in the chat, but you will also be directed to it when the webinar ends, and I'll send it an email later. So do let us know how you felt about the webinar. We really appreciate it, and our funder appreciates it too. So important stuff. Let's get to the Q&A here. So go ahead and enter any questions you have in the Q&A, and Ed is going to take charge and read them aloud, I believe, unless you'd like some help, Ed.
Yeah, the first question is from Lanita. If a CM company is hired by the GC or concrete and steel sub, are the PLPD auto insurance required for this in addition to the NO? My answer is I'm going to say yes, but the company that you would be working for and the specifications on that project will tell you if it's required. I would be surprised if you were not. So, because for the simple reason that as a CM, you're still going to be on site, and you might drive a vehicle on site. And so the PLPD, maybe the PLPD might be discounted because you're not building anything. But if you've got a vehicle on site and you've got a worker on yourself, so all the others would be, I'm quite sure would be required. I hope that answers your question. Can I share the info for the broker we use? Yeah, I will do that I'd prefer to do that as a private message. So my email is ed@norcalptac.org. Real simple. ed@norcalptac.org. PTAC.org.
And I've just
Send me a
submitted that into
message.
the chat so you can take a look, everyone.
Great, thank you. So yeah, send me a message and I can answer other questions as well as I'll give you our broker's name. How does, from Daniel's asking, how does workers' comp insurance work with a part-time worker? Same way. You have to have workers' comp anytime people are on site, period. California is brutal about that. And the reason that I'm told it's happened, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist, is for those of you who are with any kind of experience in the construction industry, all you have to do is take a look at the housing industry. It's all private. 90% of the workers and the subs are people that are getting paid piecework. The roofers get paid per house, the framers get paid per square foot, et cetera. And these people, they don't have any kind of coverage. So California, the legislature is absolutely obsessed with making sure that all workers are covered. So yeah, you will have to have it on part-time workers. Your broker and the policy, they'll explain how your rate will probably be determined on the basis of how many hours per week that person is working, but it's absolutely required. Any other questions?
Well, I don't see anything quite yet.
Yeah, I don't either. I might mention to all you folks out there that we will be doing more workshops this year. And hopefully at some point in time, we'll be able to go back to meeting in person. If you have a chance, take a drop in on Thursday for the one I'm going to be talking about. It's another new type of workshop, and it has to do with estimating. And it's not going to show you how to estimate. It's going to show you how you approach the estimating and some of the factors you need to consider. I've covered that type of subject, as I have the insurance, in my regular workshops where I'll go for 2 hours and try to cover everything about estimating and bidding and project management. With the COVID, we've had to split things up, and we don't want to make these workshops overly lengthy so to take up too much of your time, but I'm trying to make them productive and fruitful so that you get something out of them. And so this today is the first experiment with doing something on a specific one subject and how it affects your company. The longer estimating workshops archived? Yeah, they will be. They will be.
We've got all of our past webinars are at norcalptac.org/webinars. So, and that's where this will go later today as well. Maria Duran is saying, sign you up. Go ahead and go to our webpage and you can sign up and register for yourself, and we will be very happy to see you on Thursday. I'll put the links for all of these things in the chat right now. So Norcal PTAC.
For those of you who've been in business some time and or maybe if the timing worked out for you and I that you just got a job, I think you would find Tuesday the 27th, which is a week from today, you'll find that an interesting workshop. That's going to be 2 hours long, and that is specifically what happens when you get your first job, whether you're a prime or a sub, and what are you going to encounter, what processes and policies and documentation, and how does managing a public works project, are the key features on it. Because, believe it or not, they're all run pretty much the same way. And I'm going to be covering that in a lot of depth, in great detail. That's a week from today.
Right. And I've just dropped links in the chat for our archived webinars, as well as one of our the event on Thursday. And on that same link, you can find all of the other events we have posted on our page, including the one on the 27th. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks everyone for joining. Of course, you're what make this possible. And thank you so much, Ed, for putting on all the time and effort to research and present on this. Looking forward to doing the other 2 webinars with you as well. And just special thanks to the SBDC for co-funding this event and doing all that you guys do as well. So thanks, and I hope to see you on Thursday. Bye all.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.